Oh, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is the JHIN, and in today's video, we are going to teach you all of the essential mechanics you need to play JHIN like a challenger. We're going to give you so many tips in this action-packed video that if you do not improve and become a JHIN master by the end of this, you are legit trolling. There's going to be so much info in here, so make sure you stick around for the whole video, and also make sure, guys, to check out the GameLeap website linked in the description and comment section to not only master JHIN, but all of the 150 plus champions in this game. Our challenger players and coaches upload up to 20 videos a week for our subscribers, so get that exclusive access by signing up, and let's get into the video. So we're going to start off by giving you 10 quickfire JHIN tips, and the first one is to count your shots. Very simple. You have 4 shots, and you can see these via the ammo bar underneath your HP bar, and after using your 4 shots, you have to reload. So during this reload animation, ideally you want to be positioning in a safe position because you can't fight back, and then once your gun actually does reload, you can then go back on the offensive. So paying attention to the ammunition bar or just simply counting your shots is a very important mechanic. Now, tip number 2 is to bounce your grenade, so you'll queue 2 enemy champions. Way too many people in the laning phase just queue the minions and that's it, without thinking about bouncing the grenade from the minions onto the enemy champions. So whenever you see an enemy champion close to the enemy minion wave, you can queue the minions, and hopefully that grenade is going to dance to that enemy champion who is in close proximity to their minions. Now, tip number 3 is queuing before 4th shotting. So your 4th shot, the last bullet in your chamber, queuing before this is going to maximize the damage output because your 4th shot does more damage the lower the HP the enemy champion has. So we queue to soften them up even more, and your 4th shot has a much better chance of executing them. Now, tip number 4 is to do with your deadly flourish, your W, and we want you to W as you buffer your Q or auto attack. So what I mean is, as soon as JHIN is about to Q, or as soon as the character is about to auto attack an enemy champion, you can W as soon as that animation has gone through. This makes it just quicker and cleaner and a lot harder to react to for the enemy champions. Now, tip number 5, do not W, so use your deadly flourish, if you and your support cannot actually capitalize. So if your support's in Narnia, there is really no point in using your deadly flourish on an enemy champion because you cannot actually use the root and deal more damage to them. So it's kind of just a waste. But if you and your support are close to the enemy champion you're going to W, for sure go for it, because you can then follow up with more damage and hopefully kill that champion. Now, tip number 6 is to use your E, so your traps, to cover fog and popular ganking routes, because in the bot lane there are lots of spots where you can get ganked from and the enemy support might be hiding. So of course the 3-lane brushes, the alcove, the river brushes, the tri brushes, all of these spots are very popular for enemy champions to walk over. So by doing this is going to keep you safe during the laning phase and prevent enemy champions from actually making a play. Now, tip number 7 is to ult as soon as you land your W. Now, I'm not talking all the time, I'm talking if the enemy champion after you land your W is maybe lower than half HP, because 4 shots from your ultimate is probably going to kill them. So by landing your W and then pressing R immediately, your first shot from your ultimate, your curtain call, is guaranteed to land. And remember, this first shot is going to slow the enemy champion, and it gives you a really good chance of landing your next 3 shots with your curtain call. So ult as soon as you land your W if the enemy champion is actually killable. Now, tip number 8 is to wait for your teammate's CC to land for your ult bullets, and you can also apply this to your W. So if the enemy champions are mobile, obviously it's going to be more difficult to land your deadly flourish and your curtain call shot. So by waiting just a little bit for your teammate to land a bit of CC, it might be a J4 knockup, it might be a Pantheon W, it might be a Rel Magnet Storm. Waiting for these big CC abilities to land guarantees 100% your ultimate bullets to hit. This is just a way more consistent way of using your ultimate. Now, tip number 9 is to hold your ultimate bullets when the enemy champions are mobile, because this will force the enemy champions to juke and stop running away. So your teammates, if they're nearby, can catch up to them, but by juking, they're actually going to stay in the ultimate range and give you a chance to actually kill them. So don't feel like you have to use your ultimate bullets in the first 4 seconds. And the 10th and final quickfire tip is to try to combine your Gale Force with your 4th shot. The execute damage you have here is ridiculous because a Gale Force is active damage, and then your 4th shot, because Cloudburst, the Gale Force active, is lowering the enemy champion's HP, you put them more into execute range. So we soften them up with the Gale Force and then 4th shot them to the grey screen. This is a very deadly combination, so always look to use this in the late game against squishy champions. Now, to really understand how to play JHIN and use all of these tips and tricks at a challenger level, we are now going to look at 2 challenger gameplays I have selected that showcase the most important JHIN mechanics. So let's dive into the first gameplay, and T1's Gumayusi is going to bounce that grenade off these minions onto the enemy Caitlyn. Now, watching him do it is one thing, but recognizing when to do it yourself is another. So if you ever see the enemy AD carry or support standing close to their minion wave, Q one of the minions so it bounces from that minion hopefully onto the enemy champion. This is a great little trick to use during the laning phase, so make sure you are constantly looking for it. Now, another cool trick is to maximize the 4th shot damage, which we've talked about. So because the lower the enemy champion is, the more damage your 4th shot will do. So before we use our 4th shot, we want to soften up the the enemy champion as much as possible. In other words, we want to Q before 4-shotting, so they are lower when that last bullet connects. So in this clip, what does Gumayusi do? Wait a second, he doesn't do it. Can someone send him this video? But yeah, he should definitely Q before 4-shotting the Caitlyn here because it will deal more damage. In this game, it doesn't really matter, but in others, it definitely will. And if you don't Q beforehand, you will miss out on kills. Now, after killing Lux, Gumayusi is going to use another one of those tips we talked about, and this revolves around using your W. So if you are the only one dealing damage to an enemy champion and you have your W off cooldown, using your Q and then immediately using your W is a great way to catch enemy champions off guard. So as that dancing grenade is about to hit that target, our W is going to connect at the same time and root them. So when Gumayusi Qs, he then Ws. Now I understand that it misses Echo, that's because Echo is a very good player as well and knows what's up, but this will catch out so many players and is a must-have weapon in your JHIN arsenal. Now another really important weapon to have in your arsenal is to place your traps like we talked about in positions where enemy champions are likely going to chase you if the fight does go south in the bot lane. So you can see where Gumayusi places his traps here. He places them in the bottom brushes and also around this wall. This is a very popular position for the enemy support to potentially stand to poke him during the laning phase. So these traps, what they do is cover you if you need to get out of a situation. And because some of these will be in brushes, they are going to reveal the enemy support in particular, or even jungler if they're looking to ambush you. And just a little bit later on, Gumayusi is once again going to use the dancing grenade tip. So as soon as he sees Lux close to these minions, he's going to Q the first minion and it's going to bounce to Lux. And at the end of this, because he knows his grenade is going to hit the enemy support, he tries to use his deadly flourish to set up a root and potentially a kill for the blue side. Now unfortunately it does miss, but this potential kill is all set up because Gumayusi is using the enemy minions as stepping stones to bounce his grenade onto the enemy champions. Now if you guys want to see one of the sickest JHIN plays of all time, watch this for me right here. So Gumayusi is going to end up 1v1ing the enemy Lux support, and you can see how close this fight is. Now as soon as Lux goes in here and flashes for Gumayusi, notice how he's going to auto attack and Q. This cancels the auto attack animation, so this is something you guys can do in your games as well. But also notice how Gumayusi is running into the bottom brushes. This is going to give him fog of war, so Lux can't actually hit him because she has no vision until Gumayusi auto attacks. And at the end of this play, he does something that lots of JHIN players don't actually know about. So when you use your deadly flourish, that W is going to travel from the original location. If you do flash, that is. So when Gumayusi Ws and then flashes, his W is traveling from his previous position, not from where he flashes to. This ends up rooting the Lux, and thankfully Bard comes in and kills the Lux and he cleanses the ignite. One of the sickest players I've ever seen, but you guys can certainly do this in your games too. Now in the next game, we're going to see this challenger AD carry. As soon as Jinx moves up into Q and auto attack range of the JHIN, because he has his 4-shot, what's he going to do? Well, he's going to Q before 4-shotting. This means that his 4-shot is going to deal more damage because Jinx will have less HP, and this is just essential to do for any JHIN player. Now if we continue in this game, one of the biggest themes when you play JHIN is using your W, especially when you have a hard engaged support, with the actual CC your support brings to the table. So as soon as Leona goes in here onto the enemy Jinx, you can see where JHIN is standing. Your W has amazing range, so you actually don't have to be that close to the fight that might happen. So using your W from a safe position to root the enemy champion with your teammate CC, it creates a chain CC reaction. So the enemy champion is going to be locked in place for a significant amount of time, and this just gives you a better chance of damaging them and potentially killing them. And later during the lane, we're going to see exactly the same thing. The Leona support engages onto the Jinx and JHIN lands his W, and it's a really nice trade for the red team. These little mechanics are so important to apply, but remember, this JHIN is not using his W for the sake of it. He's using his W when he or his support is dealing damage and CCing the enemy target. So the quality of your Ws is always going to be more important than the actual quantity. And can you believe it? When Leona and JHIN go to invade the enemy jungle Diana, Leona lands their CC, and then JHIN backs it up with the deadly flourish, and he ends up picking up the kill and getting double buffs. So it might look so simple, but so many JHIN players, especially those starting out, will use that W in the wrong way instead of using them like this. Now the last clip we look at here, we can see that JHIN is in the late game, but unfortunately this challenger AD carry doesn't even do this properly. So you can see he's got his 4th shot ready, and he's also got his Gale Force active ready, but for some reason, instead of Gale Forcing into the 4th shot, so dealing more damage to Jinx because the 4th shot will deal more damage the lower she is, he ends up 4-shotting first and then using his Gale Force. This is just missing out on crucial damage, and even though again it doesn't really matter in this clip, it will matter in other games and you will miss out on kills for it. So make sure guys you take these JHIN tips with you into your games and try to apply them as much as possible, and I guarantee you will have success. If you did enjoy this quickfire guide, let us know down below by leaving a like, and until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the JHIN.